Yo, what is going on, guys? Noah here from Sixflow, and if you build AI voice agents or run an AI voice agency, you're going to want to watch this video because I'm going to be going over a massive new Retell AI update that's going to change how we monitor our voice agents. That said, if you guys find this content useful or want to support the channel, hit that like button, drop a sub, and let's jump right into it. All right, guys, as you can see, I am in my Retell AI dashboard and we are in a new section called alerting. Now, this is a massive new update and we need to break down what it actually is before I show you how to use it. Now, like I always say, the first thing we need to do every single time a new feature or a new function is added to a platform is go read the documentation. So let's go hop over. All right, so as you can see, Retell AI lays out exactly what this feature is, and it is to set up automated alerts to monitor your AI voice agent operations and get notified when key metrics cross thresholds. So pretty much what this means is that it's a notification system that will simply send you a notification via email or webhook whenever a certain metric crosses a threshold. Now, as we know, Retell AI loves their metrics, so we know that they're going to give us a bunch of options to choose from. So let's go check those out. If I scroll down just a little bit, you can see that we have a bunch of available metrics like call count, concurrency use, success rate, negative sentiment, custom function latency, and so on. Now, this is the reason that this feature is so awesome for our monitoring pipeline when it comes to our clients' voice agents. Because previously, a lot of these metrics you would actually have to keep in mind manually and not have an actual system that will simply just notify you whenever these thresholds are crossed. Now, of course, in some of these situations, you have your end-to-end automations that may be running in the background, but the fact that this is coming from Retell AI itself makes it a lot easier to set up and maintain long-term. Now, you can also see that Retell AI gives us a few examples of use cases such as monitoring call volume, tracking system health, monitoring costs, and detect quality issues. And that is a really big deal. Take call volume, for example. I'm sure that a lot of the voice agents that you're running for you or your clients have a certain limit for how many minutes they're allowed to use or how much money they're allowed to spend on their voice agent per month. Now, of course, we did track our minutes being used every month previously through N8N automation, storing them in a database and then performing some calculations to get the monthly cost. However, a system like that is a lot more complex to maintain and it leaves a lot more room for error to occur within the little details of the pricing. So now with alerting, we don't need a 10-node workflow and a database to store all the cost of every single call. We simply set up an alert that monitors the call volume, and if it reaches a certain threshold, you can add a 1 to 2 node workflow that will temporarily disable the agent or notify the client that they need to top up on their minutes. Now, another great example is quality issues, because a lot of this was done completely manually before. And when I say manually, I don't mean going into Retell AI and looking at every single negative sentiment for every single call that it makes. I'm sure a lot of you use the API or have your own dashboard to see how much the negative sentiment is actually increasing. However, that still requires you to constantly monitor your dashboard or the data from your webhook to see how the agent's actually performing. But now we don't need that anymore because we'll simply receive a notification when that actually occurs. So I hope by now you can actually see how useful this feature can actually be. So now I'm going to show you how to set it up. All right, so we're back in Retell AI's dashboard, and all you need to do to access this section is head over to the left side tab bar. Under the monitoring section, you will see alerting. Go ahead and click that and you'll be brought to this page right here. Now you can see off the bat that Retell does provide us with some examples like payment failure, high concurrency spikes, and so on. But for this, we're going to create our own, and to do that, we're simply going to hit create alert. So you can see that there are a bunch of fields that we do need to fill out, starting with the name. So of course, just give it a solid name so you know what this alert is actually intended to do. So for this example, let's just say we wanted to track the cost of an agent. So I'll give it a name like monthly agent cost. Of course, you want to specify which agent this is actually going to apply to, but we're going to get there in just a sec. The next thing that we need to choose is the metric condition between absolute thresholding or relative thresholding. So if we choose absolute thresholding, which is compared to a certain value, that's just setting whatever we're going to compare to an exact value. However, if we choose relative and we switch over to compare to last cycle, this is going to monitor, let's say, month to month and see how the agent performed this month relative to last month. So for this example, we're going to keep it on absolute. So we're going to go back to compare to a certain value. All right. So the next thing that we actually need to choose is the metric that we want to monitor. So like I said, we're going to be monitoring cost for this specific alert. So to do that, I'm simply going to tap this and I'll switch it to total call cost. However, as you can see, that field right below did disappear. And the reason for that is it's unnecessary when monitoring cost. But let's say we wanted to monitor number of calls/chats. It gives us this optional field to monitor specific metrics. For example, example, how often did the user hang up, the agent hang up, call transfer, voicemail reached, and so on. There's a bunch to choose from. But let's go ahead and switch this back to total call cost. And now we want to set the operation that we're going to use. So these are just standard operations we can use: is above, below, equal or above, or equal or below. So for this case specifically, I'm going to choose equal or above. Now, of course, the next thing that we need to enter is the actual threshold. So how much money are we going to set as the maximum number in a certain time frame? Now, we haven't actually got to the time frame yet, but let's just say that we're going to be monitoring the total cost every single hour. Now, if that's the case, let's just set this to $5 per hour because that is a good amount of minutes to spend every single hour. However, a quick note about the cost: this is in USD. So if you live outside the US, you're going to want to make sure that you understand the conversion between your currency and the USD. All right, next we got the agent section. So simply, this is where you select which agent you want to apply this alert to. And you can apply to every single agent in your dashboard. You can apply to specific agents, or you can even apply to specific versions of a specific agent. And again, if you don't want to apply to every single agent, you can also select multiple agents to apply to. All right, so the next section is called view by. And essentially what this means is how much in the past is this alert going to compare to the maximum threshold. So for example, you can see right now that it's set to 30 minutes, and that essentially means that it's going to see how much money was spent on this specific agent within the last 30 minutes and did it surpass the threshold of $5. So like I said, we're going to be checking every single hour. So what we're going to want to do is switch this value to 1 hour. And as you can see, there are a bunch of options to choose from, starting at 1 minute all the way up to 1 week. All right, so next is the notify frequency, which controls how often this metric is actually assessed. So as you can see right now, it's set to 5 minutes, meaning every 5 minutes, it's going to check this alert and see whether the threshold was passed. And if it was, it's going to send off the alert, and then you can perform whatever other automation you want afterwards. And like you can see, there are a couple options to choose from, starting at 1 minute all the way up to 1 day. Now for something like this, I think 5 minutes is fine. You could set it to 1 minute if you want to be really careful, but in this case, we're just going to leave it on 5 minutes. However, I do want to point out something important with the relationship between the view by section and the notify frequency. So as you can see, we're back in Retell's docs, and they actually list out which frequencies are supported for which window. So if you select a window of 1 minute or a view by for 1 minute, you won't be able to set any other frequency besides 1 minute because it needs to evaluate it every single minute. So when you're setting up your alert, just make sure that you're referring to this table to see which frequency can actually be applied to which window. And if you're just messing around and you choose a frequency that isn't supported, then there's nothing really to worry about. An error is just going to pop up that it's not supported, and you're going to have to choose a different one. All right, so back into Retell AI, we got the final section, which is the notification. So you can see that Retell will send you a no reply email every time this alert is going off. And all you have to do is type in your email address, and you can actually add as many emails as you want. So you can add your work email, your personal email, you can add as many as you want just to make sure that you actually are getting that alert. But the more useful approach to the notification is using the webhook. The webhook is really crucial because it allows you to perform other actions if this alert is actually going off. So for example, let's say this alert goes off, meaning that the agent has spent more than $5 in this hour, and we want to disable the agent. Well, how would we do that? We would simply enter an N8N webhook right here. We would connect it to an HTTP or a Retell AI node so that we can actually disable the agent. Then once the agent is disabled, of course, we can set a separate workflow or just add a wait node for, let's say, an hour to then re-enable the agent. And personally for me, I'm a Slack user, and with alerts like this, I want to be notified ASAP, and I don't check my email every single second, but with Slack, I'll get the notification. So what I do instead is I'll add a webhook that connects directly to a Slack node that will then send me a Slack using my Slack bot. But if you're the type of person that always has their email open and will read it instantly, go ahead and enter your email, and then you can perform whatever action you want manually afterwards. However, I do think the webhook is the better approach here. And that is pretty much it. That is all you need to know to set up alerts for your voice agents. Again, you can set up as many as you want. And one of the best parts about this is, unlike the features that they recently added like QA, alerting doesn't cost us anything. So we can set up a bunch of alerts to make sure our voice agents are performing at peak capacity and make sure that we're in the loop with every single voice agent that's running on our account. And there you have it, guys. I hope you found this tutorial useful. I just want to mention one more thing before we go. We do have a school community that is completely free to join. We have a 7-day free trial that will cost you nothing to join, with a bunch of resources and more videos like this all there. So if you enjoy learning about voice agents, how to build them, how to sell them, how to market them, I suggest clicking that link in the description and come join us on our journey to building our own AI voice agency. That said, I hope you guys found this tutorial useful. If you did, hit that like button, drop a sub, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.